Hi everyone, this video is part of Macquarie University's coding tutorials, and today we'll be moving on to the topic of ArrayLists. We'll learn how to declare and instantiate ArrayLists, how to populate them, and how to perform various operations on them. So, what is an ArrayList? An ArrayList is a dynamic array with the added ability to resize itself automatically. This means that we don't have to specify the size of an ArrayList when we create it, and we can add or remove elements as needed. When we downloaded the Java SE, it came with an ArrayList.java class. We don't really need to spend time looking at the code in this class in detail, but it's useful to know that ArrayLists come from a class, just like all the other objects we've used. As a result, an ArrayList has many methods we can use on it, which are defined in this class. We'll go through some of the built-in ArrayList methods in the rest of this video. If you do briefly look at the ArrayList class, you'll notice that an ArrayList is just an array in the background. Think of an ArrayList as a virtual pantry organizer and the underlying array as the actual pantry shelf. When you want to add an item to your pantry, you might use your pantry organizer to keep track of what you have and make sure everything is organized and easy to find. Similarly, when you add an item to an ArrayList, the ArrayList manages the underlying array for you, so you don't have to worry about things like resizing the array or shifting elements around to make space for new ones. Now let's take a look at how this is implemented in code. To declare an ArrayList, we use the following syntax. Inside the angle brackets, we specify the type of data we are storing in the ArrayList. Note that the type must be a class type, as ArrayLists can only work with class objects. If we want to store primitives such as ints or booleans, we'll have to use Java's provided wrapper classes. These wrapper classes are just object versions of primitives, and there is one for each primitive. For example, integer is the wrapper for int, boolean with a capital B is the wrapper for boolean, and character is the wrapper for char. We can also use our own class types or other classes that Java provides us, such as strings. Here I've declared and instantiated an ArrayList of integers called numbers. Notice that we haven't specified the size of our ArrayList anywhere, unlike when we worked with arrays. This is because the size is not needed, as the ArrayList will resize itself based on how many items we add or remove from it. Another thing to notice is that we get an error. This is because even though ArrayLists are included with the Java SE, we need to specify that we want to use them, similar to when we used JUnit, where we imported the test and assertion libraries. In this case, at the top of the file, we want to write import java.util.ArrayList. Once we've created an ArrayList, we can add elements to it using the add method. To add the numbers 10, 70, 20, and 90 to our list, we can do the following. We use the name of our list, numbers, and the dot operator to call the add instance method on it. First we'll add 10, then 70, then 20, and then 90. The size method returns a number of elements in the array list. To get the size of the numbers array list, we can call the size method on our list without any parameters. In this case, we'll get 4. If we want to get a value using an index, we can use the get method. To get the first element from the numbers array list, we can call the get method and pass in the index 0. We'll print the result out and we'll get 10, which is the first element of the list. If we want to remove an item from the array list at a specific index, we can use the remove method. To remove the second element at index 1, we can call the remove method on our list and pass in the index 1. We can then print the array list to see the result. ArrayList already has a toString method defined, so when we print an ArrayList, we get a string that shows the content of the ArrayList instead of its memory address. One more thing to notice is that the elements that were to the right of index 1 have been shuffled to the left, filling in the gap made by removing the 10. We can also remove objects we know already exist in the ArrayList using the remove method. Instead of specifying an index, we can provide an object to remove, and the ArrayList will remove the first occurrence of that object. To remove the number 20 from the numbers array list, we can call the remove method and pass in the integer 20. To ensure it knows we mean the integer 20 and not index 20, we have to cast it to an integer. Before we move on, I'll comment out the remove method calls so we have the whole list available to us for the remaining methods. We can use the contains method to check if an array list contains a specific object. To check if the numbers array list contains a number 70, we can call the contains method on it and pass in the integer 70. When we print this result out, we get true because 70 is in the numbers array list. If we want to find the index of the first occurrence of a specific object, we can use the index of method. This searches for the object you specify starting at the beginning of the array list. To find the index of the integer 90 in the numbers array list, we call the index of method and pass in the integer 90. When we print this out, we see we get the index 3. If the object doesn't exist in the array list, a -1 will be returned instead. On a similar note, we can also find the index of the last occurrence of a specified object using the last index of method. This searches for your object from the end of the array list backwards to the beginning. To find the index of the last occurrence of the integer 10 in the numbers array list, we can call the last index of method and pass in the integer 10. Notice in this case, because 10 only appears once, we would get the same result as if we use index of instead. Once again, if the object doesn't exist in the array list, a -1 is returned. If we want to remove all items in an array list, we can call the clear method. For example, to empty or clear the numbers array list, we'll call clear on it. If we want to check if an array list is empty, we can call the isEmpty method, which returns true if the array list has no elements and false if it holds some elements. If we call numbers.isEmpty, we will get true because just above we have called clear on it. This can be a lot to remember, so a good reference is on the Oracle website, which has documentation for all of Java's classes. If we search Java ArrayList documentation in our browser and open the Oracle link, we are taken to a page that describes all of the methods that ArrayLists have. This might look like a lot at first, but it will get clearer when we know exactly what we are interested in. This section at the top isn't important to us for now, so we'll skip it. We can scroll down until we reach the method summary section. Here we can see all of ArrayList's method signatures and a brief description of what they do. If we click on one of them, for example, the get method with an int parameter, we can see even more information about it. There is a fair bit of information here that we probably don't understand just yet, and that's fine. Instead, you can use this to look up methods that we've used before and read up on them as a refresher, or learn new methods we haven't used before. Have a go at creating some array lists, calling various methods on them, and printing the array list out to see what's happening. Remember that if you're ever unsure of how built-in objects and methods work, it's always a good idea to look for the documentation. Overall, array lists are a powerful and convenient way to work with dynamic arrays in Java. They allow us to add and remove elements as needed and provide many useful methods for operating on them. In this video, we've learned how to declare and instantiate array lists, how to populate them with elements, and how to perform various operations on them. Remember, you can always check the documentation to see what other methods are available. In the next video, we'll take a look at how we can pass array lists as parameters into our own methods. See you there!